Now, what we read, not only in the Old Testament, but also in the New, is that in the end, the nations and those people that stand with those governments in their disfavor and maltreatment of Israel, they are going to receive God's angry wrath. I mean, church, if you're listening, do you seriously believe that the claim of faith in Jesus exempts you from that promise of God to punish those who join in the maltreatment of his chosen people? Seriously? I mean, how can you know whose side you stand with? How God judges on this matter? Read the prophets. The prophets make it abundantly clear that for people of the 21st century, our stance on two issues is the best indicator of whether we're on God's side or we're not. Do you insist that the Jews must give up their Jewishness in order to join the assembly of believers who follow Yeshua? Do you support the idea of a two-state solution or any political resolution to the status of the Holy Land that might evolve that proposes to divide the land and give a portion of it to Israel's enemies, those who worship a false god? Well, if you do, guess what? You stand with the nations. And you're going to be judged according to that stance. And you're going to suffer what the nations are going to suffer. So if you believe what Joel and Zechariah and others are telling all who care to read and hear, then the next dilemma that so many is going to face is, what are you going to do about it? Do you intend to stay and fight for reform within your particular denomination, or will you separate yourself from it and seek a congregation that wants to acknowledge God's word as true and relevant from Genesis to Revelation? What you going to do? My advice is that unless you are a highly placed leader with enough influence to make reforming within your denomination even remotely possible, God tells the rest of us something for so very, very simple, so straightforward. Revelation. Not an ancient, one of the more ancient prophecies, but Revelation, chapter 18, starting at verse 1. After all these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, and he had great authority, and the earth was lit up by his splendor. And he cried out in a strong voice, "She has fallen. She has fallen, Babel the Great. She's become a house for demons, a prison for every unclean spirit, a prison for every unclean hated bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of God's fury caused by her whoring. Yes, the kings of the earth went whoring with her, and from her unrestrained love of luxury, the world's businessmen have grown rich." Then I heard another voice out of heaven say, "My people, come out of her, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not be infected by her plagues, because her sins are a sticky mass piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes." So my plea to you, I think God's instruction to you through his prophets, is one of self-preservation. If and when we finally recognize that what our place of worship might actually stand for is not what God says we're supposed to do, then we're not admonished to stay and fight. Rather, come out of her, my people. Run, flee. Get as far away from it as you can. Don't look back. Don't become as Lot's wife. Separate yourself and then seek the ancient biblical faith as Moses, the prophets, Yeshua, the apostles taught.